said the conflict with Iran could last around 4 weeks. He described it as always been a 4-week process due to Iran's size and strength. Trump added the timeline could be shorter, but said it will take time. He remains open to talks with Tehran, but gave no clear timeline for negotiations. Trump criticized delays, saying Iran should have sought talks last week and not now. Professor Johnson, I want to come to you first. Donald Trump there referencing the nuclear talks which happened with Iran, the indirect talks held in Geneva, mediated by Oman. We of course know, at least according to the mediator of the talks, the Omani foreign minister, that Iran was ready to concede, and those talks concluded. Donald Trump displayed dissatisfaction and then attacked Iran the next day along with Israel. What is this rhetoric that Donald Trump is pushing with these statements?
Well, this is an astonishing development, Thomas. The Iranians, according to the Omani foreign minister, gave Trump a better deal than Obama got in 2015, which would allow him to brag and say, see, Obama didn't know what he was doing, I'm the better negotiator. And instead of accepting victory, Donald turned around and started this illegal war. Now, that's typical of the mercurial nature I've seen in him in the almost 40 years I've known him, and I've covered him, and I've spent hundreds of hours with him. But it's also indicative that this is an amateur hour White House. Trump never did a day of public service before he took office. His ambassadors on this issue, his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, are real estate guys with no experience in diplomacy, no knowledge of the incredibly complicated politics, religious, and other issues in what the British have since the 1850s called the Middle East, the area from Egypt to India. And so that Trump didn't accept the Iranians giving him what he wanted, that is something that historians are going to chew on for the next 100 years.
Indeed. Dr. Chadha, unpacking the other part of that statement, this operation lasting 4 weeks. Now, a lot of people, of course, are comparing this war with the invasion of Iraq in 2003. That rapid toppling of Saddam Hussein took about 6 weeks. However, in the year of 2026, we live in a time where the United States can pluck a Venezuelan leader from his residence in the capital. And of course, now we're seeing a Iranian supreme leader being killed on the first day of a conflict. What do you make of that 4-week timeline? And what does it signify about the United States' aims and what they're going and what they hope to fulfill going forward?
Right. I mean, let me begin first by addressing this issue of how they were able to pinpoint and eliminate the supreme leader. I mean, let's not forget that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei made a very conscious decision of remaining in the country and not fleeing, unlike a lot of other dictators or a lot of other leaders that we've seen in the past. And that alone brings him a lot of religious legitimacy. Now he's being called a martyr in his country, and that is in a way to in some way consolidate power even after his death, which means he's in some way emboldening the council that's left behind, whether it'll be taken over by his son or his grandson. I mean, there are several options there, but the point remains that this was a conscious decision. Now, given that elimination of the supreme leader could not have been the only objective, because if a 4-week timeline is being given, still there is much more that they want to achieve. The second question arises, can US continue to do this operation? And looks like, very surprisingly, the nations around Iran do not have anything else to say about the US intervention. Specifically the Islamic nations. We are not hearing anything from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE or Kuwait from the kind of attacks. Rather, we are hearing from them that they would respond if Iran does not think reasonably. So, I mean, this is a very complicated region. My fellow panelist mentioned how there has been in a way, huge miscalculation probably in terms of escalation of conflict. But in terms of, coming back to your question on what objectives are left yet, again, I still do not see any clarity on whether the US has, apart from President Trump's own statement wherein he mentioned he has some good choices which he wouldn't reveal yet. We don't know how they want to conduct this regime change. This is clearly a shift from President Trump's own policy of doing very pinpointed surgical strikes, and then moving into this long drawn conflict. Will they be able to stabilize the region? What is the future of peace? What is the future of all these protesters? Are they going to end up once again? I mean, we saw what happened in Venezuela. There was no regime change that in effect took place later on, right? So we don't know what they're trying to achieve, but one thing is for sure, they definitely want to weaken the Iranian regime. They definitely want to weaken the authorities to the extent that they would be willing to, in some way, either completely abandon their nuclear ambitions, or, if at all they have to do it, it'll take them years to build what they have built and what has been destroyed already.
We have more statements coming in from the president coming up next, where Trump has revealed that a shortlist of 3 potential leaders for Iran exists. Trump said he would not reveal the names yet, stressing that the focus remains on completing the current military operations to topple Tehran's clerical rulers. The comment came during an interview with the New York Times, where he described the choices as very good. Regardless of the names, the announcement has sparked international attention and speculation about US plans in the region. Meanwhile, details about Iran's response or the status of the military campaign have not been disclosed. Furthermore, Trump emphasized that the priority remains completing the operation before discussing succession plans. David, openly here discussing regime change, no boots on the ground, of course, a dead supreme leader. The fact that Donald Trump is openly discussing this as early in the operation as it is, what does this signify? Who do you think he is talking about? Of course, Reza Pahlavi springs to mind. Is there anyone else that you can think of that Donald Trump openly pursuing here, that he thinks can lead a nation of 93 million people?
I wouldn't trust Donald's judgment on this one bit, because he doesn't know anything about the culture and the history of Iran. And the fact that, yes, it's highly likely that Reza Pahlavi is one of those 3. The reason the U.S. is at odds with Iran goes back to the overthrowing of the democratically elected Mossadegh government more than 70 years ago, and the U.S. putting the Shah with his Savak secret police in power. Now, I don't want to appear as an apologist in any way for the Khomeini regime. They did awful, vile things. They are not the biggest sponsor of state terrorism, however. They are far below in terms of money and number of organizations they support behind the Saudis. But Trump here is doing things that will not in any way help any effort to overthrow the regime. Now, in Iran, the government has a solid monopoly on state violence. If you want to overthrow the regime, you're going to have weapons and young men and young women who are willing to die. Well, we know they're willing to die. The government has acknowledged more than 7,000 of its own citizens are dead from protests. And that alone suggests the government is not entirely stable. But where is leadership going to come from, and why in the world would the people who have been at the top, and where there's bench strength to bring up others to lead the theocratic regime, why would they bow down to Donald Trump? If anything, this will increase their resolve, and they're likely to make various harrying attacks around the world. And one of the reasons, Thomas, that in warfare it's taught you don't take out the leader of a state is because that's putting a target on you. And for sure, the Iranian military is thinking about how can we kill Donald Trump?
Dr. Chadha, of course, we've seen mixed reactions to the death of the Supreme Leader. celebrations around the world from those who have escaped the Iranian regime. However, in Iran, the picture is much more murky. We know that there has been a 40-day mourning period for the supreme leader. The Iranian state television has released images of swathes of people distraught on the streets. Of course, there was that famous viral footage of the news anchor on television announcing his death, bursting into tears. Inside Iran, how difficult will it be for the United States to navigate, if at all, that potential successor to Khomeini if the choice does indeed fall to them after their objectives are completed?
Right, Thomas. I mean, even within Iran, we need to understand that after over 3 decades of leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini, people, as we see today, or what we can have access to in terms of their responses, are in a way split. There are those that really wanted him gone in one way or another, and then there are still those that remain, for one reason or another, very, very loyal to the supreme leadership and the way the country has been run. So, the US is, I would say, at best, very incapable at this point of guiding or in some way ensuring that this leadership transition is, stable enough, or the new leadership, whoever it is capable enough to bring to the same page all these divided people, because there would be a lot of resentment. It's one thing to topple over a government, it's completely another to wipe out a sitting leader. And that usually goes against those that are trying to run a regime change. That usually garners more emotions and more, I would say, negative emotions towards those that actually eliminated him. And in this case, Israel has never been liked in Iran, and the US pretty much stands on the same doorstep. And we've seen what's happening in Pakistan, we've seen what's happening in the rest of South Asia with people mourning the elimination of Ayatollah Khomeini. So that is in itself, a very sad development of events. In terms of selection of leadership, I mean, again, Iran has its own bodies that come up with 88 people council that in effect pick the next leader. But are they going to be picking this time the next leader based on his public service, or is it going to be based on his religious credentials? It remains, again, very, very difficult to predict at this moment, because let's not forget, when Ayatollah Khomeini was also picked and selected, he did not check the boxes for the amount of clerical experience he needed to have. And at even that point, the threshold had been severely lowered. So we do not know this. Iran is now in a crisis, in a political crisis, in a domestic crisis. They would need the face that would show in some way continuity and not a complete break from what they've been doing if the regime wants to maintain its power.
Do stay with us, both of you, as we continue giving updates to our viewers. We have further updates coming out of Lebanon now. The Israeli military has ordered wide evacuation